All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. It's going to be an awesome podcast today. Right before we get into it, we want to shout out our sponsor, VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties transitioning from active duty back to normal civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. The easiest way to reach out to VetLife is to do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, we're going to get into this podcast right away with Mindset Mike. That's what everybody knows him as. You know, he's a coach in the MMA world. He's a coach in the wrestling world. He's a coach for the the psychological parts of the game that a lot of people don't address. And we've always said, 90% of it is mental at the elite level, but we never really focus on that area. So, Mike, for the people that don't know you, let's start it off with this. Let's take it way back. Where were you born and raised? What were you like as a kid? And then we'll start to fast forward to as a young adult, what did you first get into and how did you find yourself in mindset development?
For sure. Happy to be here. First of all, thanks for having me. So I grew up in Long Island in New York and, very much, I would say, growing up, sports was always very important to me in my life. My mom put me in wrestling when I was young. Wrestling very quickly became the sport that I focused on, that I was most talented in. I remember my first wrestling practice, my coach pulled me aside. He said, "Find me your mother right now." I said, "Okay." And so I grabbed my mom. I'm like, "Am I in trouble?" They're like, "No, I don't know what other sports your son plays, but this is the sport that he's going to be in forever." So I said, "Okay, great." And, as an ADD kid growing up, it was easy to focus on an individual sport. I was short and, so I wanted to play football, but I was actually at the time too small for the football team. So wrestling became my thing. And, growing up in New York, it's especially in Long Island, there's a swagger about us, right? Like we have this confidence, the way we move, the way we talk. And a lot of people in other states kind of see it as kind of being a jerk, but we're not. We just have this strong conviction, belief in ourselves, belief in our abilities, and very much pride in where we come from. So I know a lot of people have pride where they come from: Michigan pride, California pride, Texas pride, where I live right now. But nobody makes a song about if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And even in the playground, right? Like everyone was competitive. In the classroom, everyone was competitive. It didn't matter who you were. Like you were always trying to be the best at everything. So wrestled my whole life, was successful in high school, and didn't get to reach what I wanted to. My senior year, I was ranked number 1. I was undefeated, and I got a concussion the day after the regional tournament, getting ready to go to the state tournament. And in New York, you have to win your region to go to the state tournament, versus everywhere else it's like top 4, right? So to make it to the New York State tournament is a big thing. So I didn't get to finish my dreams. Went to college, wrestled Division I at University of Maryland, and when I was there, we ended up being as high as top 10 in the country. Had a lot of really great coaches, practice partners. But for the first time in my life, I was riddled with injuries. I tore my ACL, had 3 surgeries on my nose. College was not what I wanted it to be, and I majored in criminology, criminal justice, but did a lot of psychology classes. Really enjoyed that. I knew I wanted to be in the FBI. To dial that back real quick, I figured out I wanted to be in the FBI right after 9/11. So I as a New Yorker, I was in second period chemistry 2001, and we could see the smoke from the towers from Long Island all the way to New York City. I mean, it burned for days, right? So we were doing a career project in our statistics class and trying to figure out what we wanted to do. We did a career aptitude test, and I knew that I knew what I wanted out of my career. I just didn't know which one I wanted. Something that was hard to get, something that demanded a lot of respect if you said that you had it, something that made an impact, something that involved helping other people. And, there were a couple paths that I wanted to go, and I wasn't sure of what to do. And then ultimately, I remember Rudy Giuliani and Robert Mueller walking through Ground Zero. I was like, I want to be one of those guys. And, that's every decision I made from junior year on led me onto the path of being in the FBI. And, graduated college. First 6 months, I was in Department of Homeland Security, and then was able to transition to the FBI at 22. And I was the youngest person in the Washington, D.C. field office at 22 years old. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's wicked. And I know that East Coast pride. I mean, I grew up in Philly, right outside of Philly. I was born on Brill Street in downtown, Philadelphia, and St. Mary's Church, downtown Philadelphia, and then we slowly migrated outward from there. But the East Coast people have a pride out there, and I remember New York was like the gold standard. I remember growing up thinking that the people from New York, that at least they thought that was the gold standard.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And there's a certain amount of pride that is instilled in the youth because of that. And I
for
think
sure.
that is absolutely going to carry throughout the rest of their lives because they know, we're New
Most
Yorkers.
people never leave.
100%. I mean, because you realize you feel blessed to some degree that like, yeah, that's me. I'm not from Iowa or I'm not from Nebraska.
You're not kidding.
100%. So then you get in the FBI. When do you start realizing it's not what you want to do? Because in most people's story, if you told that to a young kid, they're like, you've made it. White picket fence now and get married with kids and you're good to go. When did you start to realize, like, wait a second, this actually isn't for me?
Right. So it was never that it wasn't for me. It's a funny story. Well, I wouldn't say funny story. It's just interesting. So I got in the FBI. I'm 22. I'm living in downtown DC. I'm living the life, right? Like I couldn't have had a better 20s. Met the most amazing friends I could ever have. My job is like something out of the movies. It's everything I wanted to do. Couldn't feel more accomplished, right? I didn't get to reach my goals in high school and college. I did very well, but I didn't get to reach my goals. And I felt like, well, you know what? All of those failures led me to be here. And so fast forward the first 3-4 years I'm in DC. I transferred to Houston. It was an opportunity for me that I knew that I can grow. DC, you're just 20 years in line for a promotion. It's just, that's where everybody, that's the headquarters. That's where everybody wants to be. So I knew I wouldn't rise up no matter how hard I worked for 10, 15 years. Unless a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity came up. So I chased opportunity. I went to Houston. And very quickly, I rose up and became successful and was able to get, management level type responsibility very quickly. And when I moved to Houston, I opened up a wrestling academy. And I saw very quickly that there was a need for like higher level wrestling. There's a lot of athletes, but not a lot of experienced wrestling coaches. So I opened up this wrestling academy within 2 years. Actually, what is it, the first year, second year? Within 2 years, we had 13 kids in the state finals. And yeah, in 1 year, we had 13 kids out of our club in the state finals. So that's like unheard of, right? And those kids were coming to us 3-4 days a week, right? They're with their high school programs, but they would come to our room. So it was a room where, iron really sharpened iron. 13 kids were in the state finals. 9 of them should have won. 5 just pooped the bed. They mentally were very well prepared. Physically could not have been better prepared. A lot of these kids had good high school coaches as well. There's no reason. Why did they just not show up? They showed up all year, but the one match that mattered, why did they not show up? So I'm sitting here with a psychology background. I was a certified crisis negotiator in the FBI. Like, mindset was my thing. So at least I felt, right? It was always a strength for me. And I felt like I knew how to coach it. People would always say, you really get the best out of kids. Well, not that day. So I took a step back and I said, okay, well, what am I missing? I gave them good advice, but it didn't stick. So I went and searched online for resources. And at the time, there was this company called Wrestling Mindset that had just kind of started gaining some traction. They were really, people heard about them mainly through Facebook and stuff. And I don't even think they had an Instagram page yet, maybe, but they had a wrestling specific systematic training program. So what I realized very quickly as I was following them and I'm doing more research, they're teaching this with a program and a process. What we give as coaches is advice. So if combat sports and sports is 90% mental, why do we train 100% physically? This generation, as I started opening up my wrestling academy, I thought, my purpose is to open up a one-of-a-kind wrestling academy. I want a career. I've always wanted a career in wrestling. I was very passionate about my FBI job, but I want to impact wrestling. I felt like that was my purpose. And I thought it was going to be through opening this wrestling academy. And I realized the issue in sports and in wrestling is not teaching better wrestling. It's these kids lack the coping mechanisms. These kids lack the mental performance skills to be successful. So when I found Wrestling Mindset, I actually hired them as a client, and I was a client, and I used them for my club team, and we had drastic results. So kids that we lost to 3 times, we were beating. In the match to go to the state tournament, we were shining. In matches we weren't supposed to win, we were dominating. So I'm like, wow, okay. Like I really thought this was going to work, but this is really going to go somewhere. They said, hey, you really understand the material. Do you want to, be trained to be one of our coaches? So at that time, they only had like 7 or 8 coaches, 125 clients. I started coaching. The results that we got were replicating in my clients and in other clients. As the company grew, I started finding myself at work thinking about mindset training. Right? So at the FBI, thinking about mindset training, I started taking my vacation days to go and speak at conventions and conferences. And eventually I realized to myself, I was like, well, while my dream job was always to be in the FBI, my passion is really in combat sports. So, fast forward 2 years, that would be 2016, from when I got involved in the company to when I ultimately decided, like, okay, I think it's time for me to pursue this. They beat down my door for a year trying to get me to leave. And I'm like, I work for the FBI. I'm not leaving for a startup. I just can't take that chance. But I really believed in the company. And once I got to know more about like the future business plans and, their intention to expand other sports and business coaching, things like that, I said, okay, I think I'm willing to take the chance. And there were a couple things that happened, like, they say God gives you signs. Well, I never really had one before. God smacked me in the face like 3 or 4 times in this process. Like just things that were put in front of my face or things that fell apart, things that came together. There was no other explanation other than to put my eyes on, you need to trust me, take a chance and bet on yourself. And then, 2016, I remember I was really debating whether or not I was going to leave. And I was used to make fun of Tony Robbins, but I saw this Tony Robbins video on my Instagram feed as I'm scrolling, and I'm like, this guy's a douche. But let me go look at this video. I actually used to call him Lurch. I was like, this guy looks like Lurch. He's a douche. So I'm listening to this video, and he talks about burning your ships. And can I curse? So he says, so sometimes, a lot of you complain you don't have the resources to take the chances, right? You don't have the money, you don't have the capital, you don't have the investors, you don't have the materials. You don't lack resources, you lack resourcefulness. You need to be willing to bet on yourself. If you believe in what you're doing and you have a passion about what you're doing and it makes sense, right? You make an educated decision. You don't lack resources, you lack resourcefulness if you won't pull the trigger. Sometimes if you want to, he started referencing the burn your ships, right? What the Vikings used to do. So I'll explain it in a second. So he says, sometimes if you want to take the island, you got to burn your fucking boats. Right. So for those of you that don't understand, the reference that he's saying is the Vikings and the conquistadors, when they would sail to islands to conquer, they would park their boats, they'd set them on fire because they wanted their soldiers, their army to compete without fear, meaning that like I kill that person in front of me or I'm dead. There's no retreat. So when you're faced, this is what he said, when you're faced between death and success, you tend to succeed. So that immediately made me think of like, man, I never lost an overtime match. If I was down 1-0, I always came back. Like if you put my back on the wall, I'm going to be successful. And if it's in my hands, right, versus like the nepotism and the favoritism in the government, right, all the red tape, if it's in my hands and my hustle, wrestling taught me that like, if I'm in charge of my hustle, MMA no different. You hustle, you'll be successful if you have talent and hustle and support around you. I knew that I can do that. So I literally woke up the next day and I put in my 2 weeks notice. Saw that video. So thanks, Tony Robbins. I appreciate it. One day when I shake your hand and I see you, I will let you know that you were the final straw for me to leave my job.
After initially thinking that you were a douche.
After initially thinking you look like Lurch and you were a douche.
It's really funny because to some degree you are the Tony Robinson of the sports world. I mean, yeah. Tony Robbins of the sports world, because you're doing similar things. You're trying to bring out the best in human beings. You know what I mean? A lot of times they say a lot of the things that we look at that we tend to feel animosity towards are some reflection of an internal world. There was probably some degree of here's this guy standing at the front of people leading the armies and,
Yeah, I want to be that guy.
Exactly.
Except not look like Lurch.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so some part of your psychology was like, fuck that guy. I don't like that guy. But now you realize like you're doing something similar.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a crossover. I thought you had actually left the FBI and then found mindset training. I didn't realize
it was the reason I left.
Got it.
Because I have insurance, 401k, complete job security in an uncertain economic environment in that time. And I've got a daughter. I've got obligations. I knew building a wrestling academy was not going to be it. It was a big chance, but I was like, I get to bet on myself. I believe in this. I know that mental performance as a coach, you could teach technique all day, but whether or not they show up, especially in combat sports, whether or not they show up is what matters right now. Kids' number one struggle is not just being tough and it's not being strong or fast, right? That's why if sports are 90% mental, why do we train 100% physically? And our process and our system is what bridge the gap. We could systematically build and teach mindset versus how do most people build mindset? You talk about it. You listen to podcasts about it. You read a book about it. Well, how about, James, you just stop coaching MMA practice. You have them listen to podcasts about MMA. You have them read books about MMA. Maybe watch some film, but don't drill. Don't spar. Don't do any of those things. but just have them think and talk about it. So you retain 5% of what you hear, 30% of what you see, but 75% of what you do. So our training system isn't just talking. You pair people up with mindset coaches, and there's these mindset training exercises that are sports specific where they put pen to paper. You guys were my first MMA client, MMA team client, and then from you guys, we're working with over, 40, 50 guys in the UFC and Bellator now at this point, numerous teams. And, you guys saw for yourselves that there's a big difference between being a great motivator as a coach, giving the right advice, and then being able to systematically build that process the way that we did in school or in drilling and in practice.
Absolutely. I actually did an interview before my first fight in Brazil where the gentleman that was interviewing me, Mike Ramsdale, you've met him in here before, he said to me, mental or physical. And this is I'll send you the video after this, 2014. And I go, it's all mental, because at the end of the day, I can teach you to throw an armbar. I can teach you how to throw a jab. I can teach you how to shoot a double leg. But if you don't believe that you're capable of hitting that when it counts, or when it's on the line, you can bet on yourself, let's say, that I'm going to get that armbar, then you're going to fail. You know what I mean? I talked about that same thing. So it's everyone knew that problem existed in the world. It's just people were finding, different ways to try to solve it. You know what I mean? And some people had higher levels of success than others. And I like the idea that you're talking about of betting on yourself. Most successful entrepreneurs, leaders, passionate people, they bet on themselves. Mm-hmm. It's the idea of you jump out of the airplane and you got to figure out before you hit the ground how you're not going to die. You know what I mean? And I think if more people learned that type of internal fortitude, that probably was instilled in you from your youth, from wrestling. What's that old saying? Once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. Yeah. And you grew up with that sense of I'm a New Yorker. Where's my khakis? We can do this. You know what I mean? Right. And so you had that courage within you. Plus, you're a young man. You're successful. You're in the FBI. You don't have a ton of things that might chain you to, fears or doubts of, oh, Jesus, what if this doesn't work out? You go, I'm going to go get it. So now, fast forwarding from the man that you were when you decided to pull the trigger to the man that you are today, how has mindset training not affected your clients? How has it affected your life? What does your life look like at this moment? Because, you had a vision when you were in the FBI of I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my 2 weeks in. I'm going to go this direction. Let's talk about, in the time since you made that jump, what has it done for your life?
For sure. So, when you get to 18, you're all right, I'm an adult now, right? And then everyone's nah, you're a kid. You get to 21, you're oh, I'm an adult now. Nah, you're just a kid. We think we know everything when we graduate college, and then we get to a real job and we're man, I don't know anything. Got to the FBI and I'm man, I made it. And then I go to training. I'm damn, this is hard. I went through all these things coming up to it, and I thought, I was I'm really well prepared. I'm a Division I athlete. I'm this. Man, this was so much harder than I thought. Then I graduate from, the academy, and I go into my job, and I'm okay, I'm trained. And my boss is yeah, all that stuff that you learned at training, yeah, forget about it. This is day one. You're a newbie for the next 2 years. It's what, really? What did I do for the last 6 weeks? Okay, and you think you know everything, you realize you know nothing. You get to 25. All right, 25 is okay, I'm an adult now. You realize you know nothing. So then I'm in 7 years in the FBI. I get ready to be an entrepreneur, and I'm okay, I'm ready. I'm so prepared. Behavioral science researcher for the the BSU and the FBI, hostage negotiator, surveillance of counterintelligence, counterterrorism cases, national security matters. I'm ready for this. I don't know shit. Right? Just because you have all these life experiences, it prepares you for the adversity, but it doesn't prepare you for that. So my point is that all these stages in my life where I'm I got this. Oh no, you don't know shit. It was something where I leveled up. Now, mindset coach day one when I leave, right? I'd already been doing this for 2 years, had a lot of experience in it. When I leave now, I was already really good. I was the guy that a lot of people recognized on the Instagram, or oh, you work with this guy, you work with that guy. Man, you really made a big difference in our team. You really did this, you really did that. I'm 10 times what I was then. So if I was good then, I'm 10 times what I was there. A big part of that is I've spent the last 4 years traveling extensively. I cashed out my IRA when I left. And I said, all right, this is me giving 100% effort. I don't know what state's going to hit, what sport's going to hit outside of wrestling. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to bet on myself. And what I call now, I'm going to surrender the outcome of what happens on these trips. I'm going to spend money to make money, scared money don't make money. So I'm going to take some educated guesses and invest in people, not profits. Relationships, not sales, and I'm going to see where this takes me. And either I'm going to come back making money, or I'm going to come back learning, building relationships, and at least just having exposure and experience. So the first couple of years when I wasn't Mindset Mike and people didn't know me, I surrounded myself with the best individuals, teams, or up and comers in different sports, and just soaked as much information from them. Trained a lot of them, but soaked up a lot of information. What makes you successful? What makes you successful? You hear me talk a lot about gratitude, and spending a lot of time within the Penn State wrestling culture and the Sanderson family. I learned a lot about what made them win 8 out of 9 national titles in a row. And we could talk about that later, but point being is that, like, the more that I traveled, the more that I dug in, the only way that you get better at a sport besides doing it is teaching it. So mindset's no different. So if you retain 75% of what you do, 90% of what you teach, and all day, every day, I'm studying and teaching. So I've become, not just as a mindset coach, a 10.0 version of what I was in 2016. As a man, a 10.0 version. Don't get me wrong. Like, don't be looking at me thinking I think I know everything. Because in 5 years, I'm going to be like 35-year-old Mike didn't know shit, right? So, I have this. I am not afraid to fail. I'm educated when my life or health or money is on the line, but I'm not afraid to fail. I'm afraid to not take enough chances. So I know where I'm at now is tenfold what I was, 5-6 years ago when I left. Where I'll be in 5 years, I think, I could be in a place where I'm in an arena with thousands of people in front of me wanting to listen, and continuing to change lives. But for me, this has helped me be better in relationships. It's helped me be a better dad. It's helped me make better educated decisions as a coach, as a man, as a mentor, in business. I've learned so much through learning from other people, through my own trial and error. And I feel very blessed to be in this business because, you could be a real estate investor or realtor, and you get better at your job over the years, but like, how much does being a realtor make you a better person? And no offense to any realtors out there, I'm just saying, like, I'm in a career that I constantly pour into others, but by pouring into others, I'm pouring into myself. And the gratitude that I build within myself by helping others on a daily basis, gratitude is directly connected to dopamine. Dopamine is the number one performance-enhancing drug in sports. This is the one thing people don't understand. People that can compete, relax without fear, and they're excited to be in there. I bet you if you were to measure the dopamine levels in people like Penn State wrestlers or some of the fighters that we see happy, smiling, loving to be there, their dopamine levels are going to be double what most other people are. So that's the thing. If you want to be a drug dealer, deal dopamine. That's going to be a future book I write. Be a dopamine dealer, right? Number one performance enhancing drug. So my dopamine levels are through the roof on a regular basis. So I'm happier, I'm more productive, and bad stuff happens to me all the time. I have negative thoughts all the time, but my dopamine and my coping mechanisms are so strong because I build them in other people that it's made me 10 times stronger than I could ever be in any other profession.
Yeah, that's huge. And a lot of it is perspective. And the scary thing about life is, like, people create their own perspectives in here. Two people could live through the identical situations, the same circumstances, the same environments. One person could go extremely negative and bad. It's like, there's a quote that I say a lot to myself is like, you see what you want to see. And if you want to see failures and stress, and well, that's what we think we become. Yeah, what we think we become. But I've been huge into mindset since I was almost a kid. You see what you want to see. If you look at something that is terrifying to someone else, that's opportunity. There's challenge there. You know what I mean? So it's like you choose what you would like to see in this world.
You choose what you focus on, and what you 100%. Focus on determines your attitude, your effort, your energy, and your results.
Absolutely. And a lot of the times you're living in the prison of your own mind. You know what I mean? So you got to make that place, enjoyable. You got to, every time life tries to throw you something, you have to find a way to filter it or break it down to some.
That's the word, is filter. Every thought that comes in, you have about 50,000 thoughts a day, right? So the filter that you have to use let me rephrase, you have to use a filter when thoughts come in. And you either filter those thoughts productively or unproductively. And the results of that situation will follow, based on that filter. That's what people don't do. That's the baseline of having a strong mindset, is having strong filters and emotional regulation.
And the ability to just really use, this thing, because a lot of the times, why do advertisers spend billions of dollars a year? They're trying to make your mind make decisions that you're unaware of. Like, they want you to look at a logo and go, oh, I need this to be successful. I need this. I should go eat that. But they're trying to cram so much information into your mind, hoping that it just passes right by that conscious brain that goes, that food's kind of shitty. I don't want that. That's not good for me. It's not going to lead me in a good direction. It's not going to make me feel better. My future is going to involve more medications. But they don't want you to think of these things. So you have to remember that, like, you are the controller in this world. And so many people give away their power because they don't use those filters. They just allow things to come in, and and then their decision. It's almost like just like a dog. It sees a car, it chases it. It does, instead of saying, like, why am I going to do this? Why am I taking this experience and pulling this emotion out of it? Is there another way to look at this? You know what I mean? So it's just like learning how to re-engage your mind. And I think being in the mindset training world, you're in a constant state of having to evaluate thoughts. You're having to see different personality types struggle with, the most basic human emotions. And like, they've proven in psychology, this better than most, for years, that the limbic system is what drives people's actions, right? So like, the way that you feel is more likely to drive what you do than what you think.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, works on think, feel, act. So the way that you think influences the way that you feel. The way that you feel influences the way that you act. The way that you act determines whether or not you have, you go up or you go down, right? So everyone focuses in sports and in life, they focus on outcomes, right? So let's take MMA. Right, so they're focused on how they're fighting. So if the fight doesn't go well, what did I physically do in the fight that was wrong that I need to change? No, you want to change whether you're winning or losing. You want to change the way you fight, change the way that you think first. If you change the way you think, you'll change the way you feel. You change the way you feel, you'll change the way you perform. Change the way you perform, and what you focus on when you perform, that's when you go on an uphill or downhill battle there. So, that even starts, everyone talks about positive self-talk, like, that's a big part of it. Yes, thoughts are the food that you feed your, words are the fuel that you feed your thoughts, which is true. But there's a lot more that goes into thought regulation. So 2 of our worksheets deal with positive self-talk out of 60. Right? It is important because if you use bad words, you'll have bad thoughts, right? But it's that thought management, because thoughts make feelings, those feelings. So think about this, like, why does this help me in relationships? So if I have a consistent disagreement with one of my significant others, if I have a consistent disagreement with my
When you said that on there, I just thought to myself, he's about to have a significant disagreement with one of his significant others.
When I have a significant disagreement, a consistent disagreement with someone, I can't change the way they feel about something until they change the way that they think. I'm trying to change the way that they think about it, but ultimately it comes down to them. So, the relationships that have been successful communication-wise for me come down to they're willing to listen to somebody else's opinion, see logic, take in their emotion and their logic, and make an educated decision. Where you struggle is people that are unwilling to change the way that they think when they're presented with new information. So let's think of COVID and all the things that you went through, right? No matter what you tell certain people, they don't care because they think a certain way, so they feel a certain way. I see nothing, no matter what, whether it was, if you didn't believe the right person was elected or the election results weren't fair or whatever, I could literally show you a video of people forging electoral ballots and they will still say it's fake. It doesn't matter what, no matter what you think of COVID or those situations, if you feel a certain way and you are not open to logic and new information, you cannot change it. So this was the struggle in the beginning, not just for us, just in general. MMA particularly, right? Very prideful, stubborn people, right? So a lot of the lower and mid-level fighters, they struggle. And when I say lower and mid-level, meaning that like they haven't made it to, let's say, like the Bellators, the UFCs, right? Like maybe like scratch the surface in an LFA, things like that. they have so much, a lot of them have so much pride, and they don't want to admit that they feel like mental training admits that they have a problem. You don't have to be sick to want to get better. You don't go to a strength coach because you're weak. You don't go to a speed coach because you're slow. You want to get faster and stronger. You don't go to a tutor because you're dumb. You want to get better grades. So it's so easy for me to approach people that are top 10, top 20 in the country, or top 5, top 10 in the world, because they're like, man, I just want an edge. Like, I need something. I want to make sure when I show up, I show out. So, if you're telling me that this works, you've got all these results, you've got this background, and I know that when I'm focused on the right things, it's hard for me to do the wrong ones. Let's do it. So I have very little resistance from teams that are top tier, from individuals that are top tier, and regardless of the sport. They want an edge. The top teams, that's why I work with all 4 state championship teams in Michigan. They want to stay winning state titles. What could they do that they're not already doing, right? They wrestle good guys. They've got good training. They've got good coaches. How do you separate yourself? And the people that are top 5, top 6, how do you close the gap? The people that are 20, 30, 40, right? How do you make jumps without waiting years? Everybody just, back in the day, it was like, hey, just keep working hard and you'll figure it out. Well, imagine if sports were directly attached to money. Right? Like, let's take let's take high school sports. Imagine if it cost you $500 a wrestling match that you lost or underperformed, right? You'd be pretty incentivized to figure it out. Again, why UFC guys, there's a big difference between 1 check and 3 checks, right? So even if you win unimpressively, you can still get cut. But people that just go for knockouts end up getting knocked out. So finding that way to perform at your best when you need it the most consistently, right? It's not hard to convince people at an elite level of that. And progressively over the last 5 years, people just realize that hey, this isn't a just for people with problems. We all have got issues, but it's if anything, it's how do I enhance my performance and ensure that all that training shows up? Because you as a coach and as a former fighter and athlete, same thing for me. It sucks to watch people pour everything that they've got and hey, what was that? That's not the person in the gym. Or, hey, you did good, but man, there's so much more left in you. It's so much more fun to be happy and excited to compete than it is to be stressed, feeling like you need to perform.
I agree 100%. And so we have 5 minutes before little Miss Alicia comes in and kicks my door down because I have a private lesson with her. World champ, Alicia Zapatella, fighting on, I can't announce it yet. It hasn't been announced.
Ooh,
but anyway, Alicia might have something big coming up. But yeah, so what I would say is to wrap this podcast up, man, just anything else that you want to capture. If you want to do a plug for your mindset training, how people can reach you,
sure.
How they can reach out to you. And then next time you're in town, we'll do a part 2 because I want to go a lot deeper into some of the things that you really preach to the athletes, the most, exceptional cases of growth that you've witnessed and stuff. So we'll do a part 2. Anyone that ends up loving this episode, next time Mike's in town, we'll shoot part 2. So just anything you'd like to capture in this moment in time, and then we'll wrap it up, man.
For sure. So the biggest thing I talk about is gratitude, right? Everybody thinks about gratitude as being thankful. So, the number one principle in our company is I'm thankful for the opportunity to compete. All right. So while you think of it as just appreciation, when you're thankful for something, right? When you see things as an opportunity, you make the most of opportunities. So the point that I say that is everyone thinks his gratitude is just shaking hands, showing appreciation. That's the foundational layer, right? That's how toughness relates to mindset. You need to be tough to have a strong mindset, but it's not what makes you. So thankful is not how you weaponize gratitude. Being opportunity oriented is how you weaponize gratitude. So what does that mean? That means everything's an opportunity, right? Practice is an opportunity to get better. Drilling is an opportunity to get ready for sparring. Sparring is an opportunity to practice my game plan, so that when I get to the fight, it's an opportunity to show my growth. When you see something as opportunity, you make the most of opportunity. So what does that mean? That means opportunity, gratitude-driven things produce dopamine. So that's the happy hormone. When you're happy, you're productive. When you're productive, you take chances, right? When you see you're not nervous when you're happy. So when you see something as an opportunity, you don't get nervous. You're just excited to be there. You're not worried about what might happen. You're just so excited that you get to compete. You've been waiting for this. It's like Christmas. It's something that you can't. A fight isn't something to be worried about. It's I finally get this. I've been waiting for this. I'm so excited. So when you learn to be opportunity oriented, that's when you can really unlock the potential, unlock your full potential, right? So that's one of the things that I try to teach my athletes the most is treat everything as an opportunity, to include being thankful for the opportunity to struggle, right? So, we were just talking about something that, going on in your life. If something works out, great. If it doesn't, what does it teach me? How does it serve me? What is this going to do to help me? Why is this the best thing that could happen? Everyone treats injury. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm injured. That's not productive. That's not gonna, if your emotional energy was connected to money, it's gonna make you money. So how do you make the most of this opportunity? Whether you have a bad day at sparring, whether you hurt yourself, whether you lose a fight, right? Or just something's going on in your life. You have nothing to gain by being upset about something. You have everything to gain by immediately filtering your thought and going through, like, what does this teach me? How does this serve me? So when you're a gratitude-driven person, everything's an opportunity. Something good makes it great. Something bad makes it manageable. And sometimes you just got to polish a turd. Sometimes life sucks or the situation sucks, but you don't let it bring you down. You're never going in the red. You're never moving backwards. So that's probably one of the biggest pieces of mindset advice that I would give. As far as, if you're interested in more information, the ways you can get in touch with me personally, a lot of people get in touch with me through Instagram, at mindset_Mike. Easy to find me. You'll see the same pretty face on my profile. And the other ways you can get in touch with us, Mike at wrestlingmindset.com through email. If you want to email me or PM me, I'm happy to give you my phone number. And, we work with 26 sports to include wrestling and MMA. So that's not the only sport we work with. That's just what we're most known for. So you can look at Wrestling Mindset, see across all social media the stuff that we do. But, regardless of what the sport is, basketball mindset, baseball mindset, softball mindset, you name it. And we've worked with that sport. Heck, I've worked with national championship archery teams. My one of our wrestling teams just upset the 9-time consecutive national wrestling champions for the NAIA division, Life University. Just had, we had a number of awesome experiences like this every year. So it doesn't have to be a Cinderella story, right? Going forward, if you utilize mindset training, right, it's something where you train such an important part of not just the sport, but building your foundation as a human being. So whether it's a high school, college, or professional athlete, it's not just building you to help you win more X, Y, and Z's. It's helping you to win more in life. And, as important as technical and strength training and all those other things are, what's more important than building confidence, learning how to take chances, not being afraid to fail, and making the most of opportunities. So,
and I agree, man. And I think that was a perfect way to wrap this thing up. And a lot of the times, I'm going to actually resort back one more time to it's what you want to see. You see what you want to see. You're redefining. Fight or flight is going to exist regardless. The nerves are there. You're just changing it into, oh, I'm excited because I'm thankful to be here. I have an opportunity to go show myself versus, oh man, what if this doesn't work out? What if I fail in front of my friends and my family? You're choosing to see it in a different way. It's not like I don't want people to, in my opinion, think that this is like a fairy tale that you're just going to walk out on the mat and you feel nothing and now you
feel the same thing.
You're a sociopath that goes out there and you're like, I can't wait to smash it. You're going to feel everything, but you're redefining the way that those emotions hit you on a deep level. So then you're able to perform better under those conditions because then your brain regulates it like, I want to be here. This is great for me. Thank God I'm in this moment. It should be me. I am confident. You know what I mean?
Pressures are privilege.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, it's like none of that's going to go away, but you're going to look at it differently.
It's just
and
a
that's
filter,
going to
like
change
you said.
everything.
That was a great word to use, and I use that all the time. It's just filtering.
So, man, pleasure having you on the podcast today. We'll definitely do a part 2, and we'll wrap this thing up. Thank you very much.
Thank you to be here.